Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for the main card of UFC Fight Night 192, Smith versus Spann. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network, as well as the host of the Shillan and Duffy Show, which will be recapping this event. Well, let's face it, 15 fights, probably very early Sunday morning. Like, I'm not even going to say Saturday night because this card's going to be 9 hours long. Anyway, Keith, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. So I want to address something right off the top. So we made this into two shows. We're not being slimy. You said this on the end of the prelims. We're not trying to get like twice as many clicks by having two shows. We actually know that it makes it more difficult for someone to have to go to two shows. This simply comes down to my schedule sucked this week. And Ben was very, very gracious, as he always is. He's extremely flexible. He kind of works around my schedule a lot. And that's why if you look, I'm wearing a different shirt. We really did record on a different night, two different nights. We recorded one on Wednesday night, one on Thursday night. So sorry, guys. Sometimes you got to roll with the punches.
Yep. And so, if you're looking at this and you're wondering where the prelims preview is, you can find it on the Sherdog YouTube page, or just right back on the front page of Sherdog.com where you found this one. If you don't care to look back for the prelim preview, I don't blame you. But let's dive right into this main card. The 6-fight main card kicks off with a middleweight matchup between Joaquin Buckley and Antonio Arroyo. Buckley, the 27-year-old Missourian, is 12-4 overall. He is an even 2-2 since joining the UFC just a little over a year ago. He has defeated Impa Kasanganay and Jordan Wright. That is sandwiched around losses to Kevin Holland and Alessio Di Chirico, who knocked him out with a head kick back in January at the inaugural UFC on ABC event. He'll be taking on Arroyo. The 32-year-old Brazilian is 9-4 overall. He is 0-2 since joining the UFC out of a pair of appearances on Dana White's Contender Series. He appeared on the Brazilian as well as the U.S. version of that show before finally getting the call-up. But since then, he's been turned aside by Andre Muniz and most recently, last December, Deron Winn, who took a unanimous decision over him at UFC Fight Night 183. That was the Thompson versus Neal card. Buckley is a pretty strong favorite here. He's minus 210, minus 215 or so. You can get Arroyo at plus 175 as the underdog. I wrote about Buckley in my column this week, which if you're familiar with the show or with the Sherdog front page, I usually focus in on a couple fighters who they have a little more at stake. They're under a little extra pressure for whatever reason. I wrote about Buckley. I mean, the good news for Buckley is that he has 4 fights in the UFC, and they are all highlight reel material. The problem is that he's 2-2, and his opponent's highlights have been pretty good too. I mean, obviously, the knockout of Impa Kasanganay, if you want to call that the greatest knockout in UFC history, I might not agree, but I wouldn't call you crazy. That's something that'll be on the highlight reels for as long as there is a UFC.
I would agree, just for the record.
Yeah, I mean, it's without even counting, it's easily in the top 5, top 3.
Sorry, just to clarify, when I say I would agree with the person who says it's the greatest knockout. Mm-hmm. I put it number 1, but yeah, there's other ones up there.
And being a live by the sword, die by the sword highlight reel guy, that gets you a lot of goodwill from the UFC. They will go a long ways to make sure you stick around and keep giving them highlights. I mean, they know how good it is for them to have a gift that goes viral without them having to spend money on it. That thousands and thousands of people are retweeting. But Alessio Di Chirico, that was a setup fight for Buckley. Di Chirico had lost 3 fights in a row. He could easily have been released. They brought him back to, they brought him to fight Buckley. He was like a 3-1 underdog, and he kicked Buckley's head off. Like, Buckley is going to get a lot of rope from the UFC, but you still got to win more than you lose. So here is setup opponent number 2. This is Antonio Arroyo, who, he's the fight against Andre Muniz. He was competitive, and Muniz is kind of quietly sneaking up the rankings. Like he's done really well actually since joining the UFC. But that Deron Winn fight was terrible. It was at like 195-pound catch weight. The thing about Arroyo is both of his fights, the fans have been booing pretty hard by the end. Like he and Buckley getting together, it's going to be like matter versus antimatter. Like, can Buckley beat him, and can he make it an interesting fight? Uh,
Man, do you think any of our listeners have any clue what the hell you're talking about with this scientific stuff?
I don't
And,
know.
and even better, do you think your co-host knows anything you're talking about with this science
Hey,
stuff?
if I'm doing a podcast on my day off, you're gonna get like the unvarnished, like just nerd, like stream of consciousness.
Main event, Ben's gonna be bringing in this string theory and
Oh my goodness. But question to me, and it's really the same thing that I boiled down the Rodriguez versus Nchukwi fight to. It is Buckley going to land something cleanly on Arroyo sometime in the first 2 rounds of this fight? I think he probably is. And just Arroyo hasn't shown much since he's gotten to the UFC. I hate to use this term. It's a cliched term. It sounds kind of insulting, but he is a look like Tarzan, fight like Jane kind of guy. Like, he looks like he should just be like this terrifying I mean, he's built about like Thiago Santos. He is just a jacked individual, and he clearly has like some fast twitch uh athleticism to him. Like, when he wants to, Arroyo's kicks are fast and hard, but doesn't throw enough. He lets his opponents dictate the fight. He's gonna be a bigger guy than Buckley. I mean, first time Buckley was on my radar, he was losing at welterweight to Logan Storley in Bellator. He's going to have the reach. He's going to be the bigger guy, and it's not going to matter. You know, Buckley's is gonna get inside, maybe just mash him with punches. Maybe he's gonna like uncork another highlight reel kick. But give me Joaquin Buckley by first round TKO.
yeah. So I thought that was what's going to happen last fight. I thought he was going to have a highlight reel. This kind of, as you mentioned, they're trying to set up not just a win for Buckley, but also another highlight reel, and that's because I mean this guy is very explosive, amazingly athletic. I mean, just you're going to see the knockout 10 times in the little preview up to it. There is insane athleticism. There's very few.
It's inhuman. Like,
yeah, there's very few people who could do that. He's southpaw. He has a very bob and weave style. I like that he bob and weaves side to side. He bob and weaves up and down. He did that a lot against Jordan Wright. I like his defensive skills. He stays compact in his zone, hides his chin behind his shoulders, throws a lot of tight, which is kind of the theme for this card. Is a lot of guys fight this way. Throws a lot of tight inside hooks, not overextended. But when he explodes with high output, high combination. His power straight left is probably his best strike. Even though his highlight reel knockout is a kick, I actually don't think he throws enough kicks, and he doesn't check enough kicks. He sits on his punches a lot. Though he isn't just a striker, like he can wrestle a little bit. He can sneak in a takedown, decent entries, decent clinch takedowns. If he gets on top, he just works in the hard ground and pound from a closed guard. Cardio is a bit of a concern, based on the way he fights. You expect him to gas out. As far as Arroyo, nothing jumps off the paper with him. I mean, he is also a southpaw, which is intriguing when two southpaw fight each other because it doesn't happen in the gym often. There's not a lot of southpaws, so that's intriguing. And that can change some things. But he does switch stances a lot, so sometimes he's in the orthodox stance. He's a brawler on the feet. Well, hold on. Let me rephrase that. He's best when he's brawling the feet. When he's throwing down in the pocket, when he's using his strength advantage, his power, just kind of like, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, try to match me in the pocket. But like you said, this times he just stands on the outside, circles, does nothing, looks, does nothing. When he does do his best work, it's also power hooks. Kicks are also specialty. He works on the outside, just throws a lot of kicks. We'll throw in like an occasional ugly spinning attack, but he's not the athlete that Buckley is, where I think would be that effective. But he's ultimately, if he wants to win this fight, he's probably going to try to take it to the ground. Get on the hips, take it down. He also likes to just stall on top. Like, he's also the same way on the ground. He stalls on top. And his cardio has been questionable. And that might be why we see less output from him, because he has gas out, especially on the regional scene, that he might be trying to conserve some energy. So who am I going to pick? I mean, we're both on the same page. I'm going to go with Buckley. I think he's going to get some of his hype back. And I was reading Einstein's theory of relativity, and I'm assuming the force of Buckley will keep the force of Arroyo. I don't know. I'm just like, but based on Einstein's theory, I mean, we got to take Buckley by knockout. So give me Buckley by second round TKO.
Outstanding. There you have two very scientific predictions for New Mansa to get it done.
And Royal's never been knocked out before, so
Well, we're going to see
maybe
something
we're
we
not
haven't
using
seen before.
science. Maybe,
No.
yeah.
Next up on the UFC Vegas 37 main card is a bantamweight matchup between Nate Maness and Tony Gravely. Maness, the 30-year-old Kentucky native, is 13-1 overall. He's 2-0 since joining the UFC last summer. He defeated Johnny Munoz Jr. by unanimous decision in his debut, came back and choked out Luke Sanders in the second round in a 140-pound catchweight matchup back at UFC on ESPN, Smith versus Clark. He'll be taking on Gravely. The 29-year-old Virginia native is 21-6 overall. He is 3-0, or sorry, he is 2-1 since joining the UFC out of the third season of Dana White's Contender Series. He did lose his debut to Brett Johns, but since then he's rattled off back-to-back wins over Geraldo de Freitas and Anthony Burchak, whom he knocked out in the second round back in April at UFC on ESPN, Whitaker versus Gastelum. Gravely is a moderate favorite here. He is minus 200. You can get Maness at plus 170 as the underdog. Keith, who do you like in this bantamweight matchup?
Yeah, so I was listening to what some other people thought about this one. Gravely, he former CS champion, so I've seen him in person a lot. So I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on him. And it seems like people are kind of split on this one, and I'm not. I'll get to my prediction later. Gravely, he's shown a lot of improvement on his feet, particularly since when he made his UFC debut and say his last fight. Though he has been rocked a lot, even though he's got a really good record for a guy who's fought some really good competition on the regional scene and in the UFC. He's a brawler on his feet, where he likes to just kind of spring into the pocket and unload big flurries of hard combinations. He's starting to find his power. We saw that in his last fight. But at the end of the day, he wants to wrestle. He's a strong wrestler. He's a former D1 NCAA wrestler. I love his drive through his hips. He gets in the hips and he just power doubles you through. Though when he gets stuck underneath, and I said this last time, he kind of rests underneath, which is an issue. He's get kind of hammer fist from underneath. But if he's on top, heavy top pressure, he understands that's his best game. He's gonna hold you down before he starts to work. Sometimes he kind of lays and prays a little bit. But we've seen more and more ground and pound on him, so that may be something he's becoming more exciting. And if a scramble ensues, this is a guy who can take you back. The biggest issue I have with him, besides the getting stuck underneath, is he can fade because he's so explosive on the feet and that he's so wrestle heavy. That's something that he needs to fix. And Maness is a guy that he's made people pay on the ground. Now move over to Maness on the feet. He's a counter striker, but he hates. He wants you to throw single strikes. He doesn't want you to throw high combinations because he backs right up to the cage and he lacks head movement, making him very hittable. I mean, just go back to his last fight against Luke Sanders. Luke Sanders was teeing off on him, almost knocked him out. But to Maness' credit, he did show some, durability and grit to survive that, and then actually drop Sanders with a shot and then getting a quick submission, club and sub type style. Doesn't check leg kicks. Going back to the Sanders fight again, that was something that Sanders was having success about. Even the commentary team was saying, like, he needs to throw the kick more. He does have pop, though. And if he's not a wrestler, but he does find a way to get the fight to the ground. Whether it's a trip, whether it's just like getting underneath his opponent's punches. He is a submission threat, good back takes. As far as prediction goes, the reason why I said that I've listened to what some other people said about this fight, I disagree with a lot of people. Like, a lot of people think this is a really close fight, or they think that Maness is a really live dog. I disagree. I feel like this is an easy win for Gravely. I like Gravely big. I think he has the power on the feet to put him out. I think he has the power that maybe Luke Sanders didn't have, especially if he's moving forward with some pressure. And if Maness backs up to the cage, that's going to set up easy takedowns for Gravely, where you really can't sprawl out on him. I'm worried about him fading late. So if Maness can survive, which I expect him to survive, being that Gravely can kind of just wear out, likes to work the clock a little bit. So the deeper goes the fight, the better chance I give of Maness. But really, I only give him a sub chance, catching Gravely shooting in on a takedown, maybe in the guillotine, something. To me, that's not enough to pick him. So give me Gravely. I'll give Gravely by decision, and I think it's going to be a 30-27.
Yeah, I was interested to hear what you had to say about this one because I was sort of thinking the same thing. Uh, Maness's win over Luke Sanders, that was a hell of a fun fight. Like that was exciting stuff, but it wasn't the kind of fight that left me feeling more confident in Maness.
No,
What
exactly. He
what it,
won 10
what it left me
seconds to
thinking
fight.
was like any top 15, top 20 bantamweight in the UFC finishes that fight in the first round. Like Maness would have been toast and we wouldn't have even gotten that cool comeback. And I think Gravely has that kind of ceiling. He comes to like it's interesting. I mean, he's younger than Maness, but has twice as many fights, and it's because he kept a super busy schedule. Like he did the whole kind of East Coast circuit. He's ROC, uh, uh, CFFC, I believe CES. You mentioned like CES was one of his last stops, but he's 29 years old and he's got 27 fights. He's 21-6, which you're like, okay, that's a medium prospect type record, but the guys he's lost to, like, well, for one thing, in the last like 4 years, he's only lost to Brett Johns and Patchy Mix, who's doing pretty well over in Bellator. But even before that, when he was on the crazy, like, I'm gonna fight 5 times a year in any place that'll have me up and down the East Coast, he's lost to Pat Sabatini, Ricky Bandejas, Merab Dvalishvili, and Manny Bermudez. That's it. Like four guys that have either
Good
been in the
dudes.
UFC and done pretty well, or been in Bellator and done very well. And yeah, he's a good prospect. Even in his last kind of run on his way to the UFC, beat Chris Matinho, beat Draco Rodriguez. He's a really good prospect. The only hole I see in his game that you already pointed out, the wrestle heavy style and the kind of like explosion on the feet can lead him to get tired later in fights. So considering that what Maness has shown us is the ability to weather a storm and be opportunistic, that's certainly a route to victory for him. But I just don't think it gets there. I could certainly see a 30-27 type thing, but I can also see Gravely getting him down with ease in the first and second round, wearing him down there, and getting a finish. Like a lot of his, like he has more TKOs than submissions, but a lot of his TKOs are TKOs on the ground where the guy's just being overwhelmed and has the choice. I can keep getting punched while I try to get out, or I can just turn my back and give up my neck. A lot of kind of like those choose your poison type. So I'm actually picking Gravely to finish this one. Give me Gravely by second round. I'm gonna guess TKO on the ground, but if he ends up choking him, that wouldn't surprise me either. We move now to the lightweight division for a matchup between Arman Tsarukyan and Christos Giagos. Tsarukyan, the 24-year-old Russian, is 16-2 overall. He's 3-1 in the UFC. Lost his debut to Islam Makhachev. Since then, he's bounced back with 3 straight wins over Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Davi Ramos, and Matt Frivola. That one most recently was at UFC 257 back in January. All 3 of those wins by unanimous decision. He'll be taking on Giagos. The 31-year-old from California is 19-8 overall. He is 4-2 in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight win streak, having choked out Sean Soriano back in May at UFC 262, beaten Carlton Maness back in December at UFC Fight Night Thompson versus Neal. Those wins allowed him to bounce back from his second UFC loss, which was a decision to Drakkar Klose all the way back in August of 2019. Tsarukyan is the biggest favorite on the card. He's minus 750 right now. You can get Giagos at plus 525 if you see value there. You certainly stand to make a lot of money, but this would be, I think, the biggest upset in the octagon this year if Giagos were to pull it off. I'll jump right out and say that there are some like fights with really wide odds where you're like, it might be worth taking a flyer on there. I could turn $10 into a good steak dinner because there are routes to victory for the fighter who's not favored. This is not one of those fights to me. The real problem with this fight isn't just that Tsarukyan is so good. It's that he's so good at the same things Giagos is good at, only better. Really, to me, Giagos, he prospers when he's the better wrestler in the cage, and he struggles when he isn't. And Tsarukyan is a absolutely sensational wrestler. And then on top of that, I think he's going to be faster, stronger, more like more of a technical and adept grappler once they're on the ground, even though, again, Giagos is a very good grappler. Giagos, I mean, he might have more straight power in his strikes on the feet. Like, that's one area where I think he might have the advantage, but I just don't think it's going to matter. Like, even when he is the better striker, he's just a wrestler by instinct. You know, I've seen him take fights to the ground when he was actually winning on the feet. That's not a good idea. And even if he overcomes that tendency, I think Tsarukyan can get him down. So I think Giagos is a better fighter than these odds make it look like. I think Tsarukyan, again, he's maybe the best men's prospect in the UFC under age 25 right now. But yeah, I mean, this is just going to be a blanking. I think I don't think there'll be a finish, but Tsarukyan 30-27 or maybe even 30-26, just easy money for the guy.
Yeah. So you said when you look at the odds, you can see ways the guys win. I'm gonna try and make my best argument for Giagos. I'll start with him. He's a high volume guy. Like, he can work from the outside and just stay busy. He switches a lot and uses movement well. So he's not a stationary target for a wrestler. He can get wild and overthrow his strikes, and he loads up on everything. But as you said, he does hit hard. I mean, you look at him; he's a guy who has, like, very ripped up guy, good physique. Like, I'm sure he turned some heads at the beaches, and he mixes strikes and takedowns in well. He looks for takedowns a lot. Hard ground and pound. He has a percentage to black belt, good back takes. So that's all things that could help him. But he does fade late. Now, everything I said about him, I think Tsarukyan just better. He's a much better athlete. He's so fluid on the feet. Fast hands, stays really tight with his strikes in the pocket. Good at slipping, and he's so good at slipping and ripping, but he's keeping himself in range. So when you miss, he's going to counter with bigger, better, and more shots. I love that he's intelligent for his age, goes down to the body, works the body. I'd say he has, I think he's, I was going to say I think actually you said that Giagos may be the hardest striker. I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I think Tsarukyan might be, and he's only 24, so I would bet on that moving forward. Like, he hasn't reached his power age, and then he also has the calf kicks he loves, and to throw out like a spinning attack, and then he's one of the best wrestlers. I mean, you go back to his fight against Islam Makhachev. I think that was his UFC debut on short notice against a guy that nobody wants to fight. He took it on days' notice in his UFC debut and gave Islam Makhachev everything he can handle. He's an incredible wrestler, great at timing takedowns, quick entries, great at winning scrambles. If you're in the clinch, he looks for like foot trips and judo type throws. Really good grappler, hard to submit. I mean, he out grappled Davi Ramos. Like, to me, Giagos is getting a paycheck, but he's not getting a win bonus. Giagos is good. Tsarukyan is really good. Like, I think he could be one of the top guys in the sport, in the division, in the sport. Give me Tsarukyan by dominant, one-sided affair where he beats him up on the feet and the ground. You said 30-27, even maybe 30-26. I'll go 30-26, maybe 30-25. I think it's gonna be that dominant.
There you go. Two emphatic calls for one of the most promising prospects in the UFC to keep the train rolling. Third from the top at UFC Vegas 37 is a flyweight matchup between Ariane Lipski and Mandy Bohm. Lipski, the 27-year-old from Curitiba, is 13-7 overall. She is 2-4 since joining the UFC as a former KSW champion. She is currently on a 2-fight losing streak, having lost to Montana De La Rosa back in June at UFC Fight Night, Rosenstrike versus Akai. And previous to that, having lost to Antonina Shevchenko back at UFC 255 last November. Both of them second-round TKOs. Both of them pretty visually similar ground and pound losses for her. She'll be taking on Bohm, the debuting prospect, a 32-year-old German fighting out of SBG Ireland, is a perfect 7-0 in her career, has fought primarily in local German promotions, but did appear most recently last October at Bellator 247, where she took a unanimous decision over Greet Eckhout. Odds on this one slightly favor Lipski. She is minus 120, where you can get Bohm at even money as just a very slight underdog. Lipski is another one that I wrote about this week as someone who's under undue pressure. And here it's plain as day. This is Bohm's debut, and she's an undefeated prospect. There's nothing that could happen in this fight that's going to get Bohm cut. Whereas if Lipski loses, she might be done. Like, that's the definition of one fighter in this fight has different elements of risk and reward than the other. But I mean, it's not even keeping any of the prospect shine anymore. I already made the case that Lipski might be the biggest bust of like the post-Pride era in terms of fighters who came to the UFC as a current or recent champ from another high-level promotion and underperformed. Like, someone in the comments said it should probably be Gilbert Melendez. I'll concede to Gilbert Melendez.
Yeah, but he, like, some people thought he should have won the title against Anthony Pettis. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he lost. Yeah. Will Brooks.
Will Brooks was pretty terrible, but like, at least Will Brooks, he went 1-3, but he fought all really good dudes.
Fair enough.
Like, yeah. Lipski.
Good point.
Lipski came in, she fought Joanne Calderwood. If she had won that, they probably would have fast-tracked her to a title shot. Like, if she come in, beat Calderwood, like, if they could say, hey, the KSW champ came in here, knocked out one of our top 10 contenders, it would have been like the Michael Chandler thing. Like, you pass, Absolutely. Go, you collect $200.
Yeah.
And it's just been downhill from there. She's beaten two of the lowest level women in the division in Luana Carlin and Isabella de Padua, and she's just lost everyone else. Like, Calderwood and McCann just kind of handled her, and Shevchenko and De La Rosa have really kind of laid some of her flaws bare.
But I mean, in fairness, I mean, she got out grappled by Antonina Shevchenko, which is, that's what happens when you go against Antonina Shevchenko. You get out grappled.
Oh. I mean, there's one Shevchenko who's like an absolutely sensational grappler, and it ain't Antonina. And she made Antonina look like Valentina. Oh my goodness. The saving grace is she's still a good athlete. She still is a good Muay Thai style striker. And she is only 27 years old. Like, when Anthony Smith, who tops this card, was 27 years old, did anybody foresee him being like a top 5 fixture in a division and having like a title shot? No. So she's not done as a mixed martial artist, but her back is against the wall. And I mean, the UFC, they clearly see the star potential and the fight potential in her, because they are continuing to try to get her winnable fights. But Mandy Bohm, like, it's a winnable fight without being like a laughable like squash match. It's not like some of the clowns they've signed for like Greg Hardy, like bringing back dudes that went like 0-3 in the UFC just to give Greg Hardy someone to fight. But Lipski's problem is that, I mean, she's not a great defensive wrestler. She's a pretty good offensive grappler on the ground, but she just can get kind of ragdolled and bodied. She's just not a physically strong flyweight. Like, she looks like she should be pretty strong, but De La Rosa and Shevchenko have just bodied her. And the one thing I'll say for Bohm is she's strong and grindy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've seen like one complete Bohm fight and pieces of others, but I'm going with Bohm here. I think she's going to win a decision over Ariane Lipski, and the UFC is going to have like some tough decisions to make on Sunday morning. Give me Bohm by decision.
Yeah, you say it like it's a surprise, and I don't mean like it's Ariane Lipski. Like, I almost expect it. Like, it's not like it was I mean, I know she's very slight underdog.
Well, yeah, Lipski's a very slight favorite, but it's not like they brought in some super hot shot and they're just like feeding like the old lion to the new lions.
Yeah.
Like, this looks like them trying to get an appropriate matchup for Lipski, and I just don't think it's going to work.
You said that Lipski's is still a pretty good Muay Thai striker. I agree with that. She has good pressure. She has good volume. She is a bit of an out striker, so she doesn't have huge power, but she can crack a little bit. Solid kicks. She's, I would say, a weak offensive wrestler, but when she's on top, she has a pretty decent top game. She is a submission threat, but on the ground, like on her back, she's a fish out of water. I mean, like we're making jokes about Antonina Shevchenko out wrestling her. She can't get back up. She'll throw up sub attempts instead of trying to get her way back up. Move over to Bomb. I got to say the same thing you said. Like you said, you haven't watched that much of Bomb. Listen, when there's 15 fights, you get only do so much tape study, and some of them has to be sacrificed. And I did sacrifice some. What I've seen, good output on the feet, very accurate with her strikes, snapping jab. She is a counter striker, and she's good at picking up the timing of her opponents and kind of beating them to the point of contact. She does drop her hands a lot and throw from her hips. You mentioned she's physically strong. That's something I wrote down too, especially in the clinch. She likes to kind of plum clinch Muay Thai style, but she's a weak defensive wrestler. I've seen her taken down very easily. You had seemed like you had no confidence in your pick. I have even less than that. I could easily see Bohm winning. However, Lipski has faced the higher competition. I think she's the better grappler. I think.
I like the rising like question tone there. I think.
I've seen her win grappling matches.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've seen her look like a white belt. I was on the fence, and you go and Bomb just to make it interesting. I will go Lipski. Give me Lipski by split decision where I don't know, one of us is. I don't know. I'm bragging like it was a genius pick of me if she wins.
No, like as late as yesterday when we were recording the prelims, my notes for this fight, like the bottom line was Lipski decision ? And I flipped it like in the last 24 hours. Like I
24
do not
hours.
know how this.
I changed the last 24 seconds.
That is the kind of hard-hitting analysis and confident picks that you tune in for, folks. The co-main event of UFC Fight Night 192 is a light heavyweight affair between Ian Cutelaba and Devin Clark. Cutelaba, the 27-year-old Moldovan, is 15-6-1 with one no contest. Overall, in the UFC, he is 4-5-1. Has been on a bit of a skid recently. He lost back-to-back fights to Magomed Ankalaev. The first one, of course, marred by controversy because he spazzed out and like tricked the referee into a quick stoppage. So they ran it back. Ankalaev beat him fair and square. But most recently in May at UFC on ESPN Reyes versus Prohaska, he fought Dustin Jacoby, and their fight was a split draw. He'll be taking on Clark. The 31-year-old South Dakota native is 12-5 overall. He's 6-5 in the UFC since joining all the way back in 2016. Fought most recently last November in the headliner of UFC on ESPN 18, where he lost to Anthony Smith, your headliner tonight, by first round triangle choke. That snapped a 2-fight winning streak for Clark over Alonzo Menefield and Dequan Townsend. Cutelaba is the slight favorite here. He's minus 140. Clark is available at plus 120 as the slight underdog. Keith, who do you like in this one and how?
Oh, man. I don't know how I feel about this fight, but it's good matchmaking because, like, they just remind me of each other in, like, different ways of, like, they both look like guys that could absolutely murder dudes. A guy like Lionheart and Anthony Smith or something like that. Like, just looks like he can murder him, and then Anthony Smith submits him in like 30 seconds. Cutelaba, he's very aggressive on the feet, tight, compact boxing. He does hit hard. He tends to throw everything into his strike, kind of telegraphs his shots. Not very fast. He loves his left hook, and he loves to brawl. Like, even though he's in his last fight against Dustin Kobe, he actually did okay on the feet, much better than people expected. But at the end of the day, like I think that was a one-off. I still think he wants to on the feet just throw down and see who's left standing, rock'em sock'em style. He has a wrestling background, though we don't often see it. But to his credit, he did use it and tried using it early against Justin Jacoby. He'll wrestle in the clinch. He's strong in the clinch, looks for elbows in close. He has slowed down in the past. a lot of fights. But to his credit, he did slow down against Justin Jacoby in his last fight, but it wasn't god awful, and he actually was somewhat competitive in the third round. Now move over to Devin Clark. He's so raw on the feet. He's flat footed. He's. I said this last time. I want to say it again. He keeps his arms he seems like he's really tense with his arms. He's like wasting energy. He does pack some power, but he can also throw wildly. He does it with his chin high in the air, which has hurt him in so many fights. He's a guy that also likes to go in the plum clinch. It's actually probably his best position, even though he's a wrestler, likes to shoot. I actually like his plum clinch, where he just will push against the cage, knee up the middle. That's what he did against Alonzo Menafield. They had great success with that fight. Kind of what saved him in that fight. He'll still just grind against the fence, chest to chest. Very physically strong guy. He is a good wrestler. He likes a reactionary double, kind of force you to kind of chase him, and then he drops down underneath you and drives through. Turns the corner well when he's in on your hips. Solid top control, though he was quickly submitted in his last fight, and he has a bad gas tank. We've seen him gas out many times. I know they say that a myth of him gassing out, that he's kind of fixed it. I don't believe that yet, but I know that's somewhat some people say. As far as prediction goes, this is another really tough fight to call. If it goes to the third round, it could be really, really ugly. We could have two options. We could see guys completely gassed out throwing arm punches, or we could see guys just hugging each other against the cage, holding each other up as they both have a heart attack. I'm gonna go with Cutelaba though, simply because he hits harder, and Clark is very hittable, and Clark has a questionable chin. So I kind of feel like he could win this grueling fight. I do favor Clark to win a grueling fight, but I think Cutelaba could win that. But if it's a wild brawl, which that could happen, I trust Cutelaba to land it more. And you know what? I've been picking a lot of decisions, so let's have some fun. Let's go Cutelaba finds it. He gets a first round knockout.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have the same concerns you do. I think this fight is very closely matched. Like you said, it's good matchmaking. Both of these guys are dangerous fighters, but they're really flawed fighters. Both of these guys have some serious holes that have kind of defined their ceiling against the top of the division. We've seen just the levels to this kind of thing that happened when Anthony Smith took on Devin Clark, and I don't think Clark was favored, but it was really close on the odds, and Smith just made Clark look like an amateur. So because I'm with you, I have Cutelaba by first round knockout in this one as well. It's not that I think Cutelaba is 10 times better than Clark. It's just there are a lot of possible outcomes here, and that's the one I think is most likely. The problem for me is that Clark is so susceptible to his opponent's offense. He's only lost to good guys in the UFC. I'm not saying Alex Nicholson is a good guy in general. Clearly, no, he's not. But in that and the Alexander Rakic fight, Clark was doing fine and just got too aggressive, got his chin out over his feet, and got lamped, especially in the Nicholson fight. The first round knockout for Nicholson, but Clark was probably winning that round and got himself knocked out with 5 seconds left, just by running right face first into a punch. Rakic, it was more of a close affair, but he was at least going to make it to the end of the round. The thing was going to go on. He got a little loosey-goosey, and Rakic just punched him right in the face. If there's one thing that Cutelaba can do, it's punch you right in the face in a wild first round. So I'm going to pick the thing that I've seen before. I'm absolutely with you. Give me Ion Cutelaba by first round knockout. And if it's not a first round knockout, God help us all. With that, we come to the headliner, the main event of UFC Vegas 37, a light heavyweight matchup between Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann. Smith, the 33-year-old Nebraskan fighting out of Colorado, is 35-16 over his extremely well-traveled career. He is 10-6 across 2 separate stints with the UFC, but most relevantly, he is 6-3 since dropping or moving up to light heavyweight back in 2018. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He defeated Devin Clark last November by first round submission, then got a TKO over Jimmy Crute just this past April at UFC 261. That ended when Crute's leg was injured, somewhere late in the round, and the doctor ruled him unable to continue between rounds. Upsetting, but however he got there, Smith is on a 2-fight winning streak, bouncing back from a stint where he had lost 3 out of 4 against John Jones, Glover Teixeira, and Alexander Rakic. He'll be facing Spann. 30-year-old Texan is 19-6 overall. He is 5-1 in the UFC. He defeated Misha Serkinov back in March at UFC Fight Night Edwards versus Muhammad by first-round TKO. That allowed him to bounce back from his first UFC loss, which was a first-round knockout at the hands of Johnny Walker last September. Smith is a slight to moderate favorite here. He's minus 160, minus 165 or so. You can get Spann at plus 140. I'm going to ask you for your prediction on this one, obviously, Keith, but a lot of things in the light heavyweight division are sort of going to sort themselves out here within, the next couple months. On October 30th, Jan Blachowicz will have his second title defense against the immortal, unaging Glover Teixeira. But as far as his next challenger goes, or the next challenger for whoever the champ is, Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker are fighting 2 weeks from this Saturday. That's a high-profile fight. Yuri Prohaska is probably next up. Alexander Rakic, who's beaten Smith and Santos, is probably like way up there in line. But unless, let me put it this way. If Spann wins, he's sneaky close to a title shot. He might only have to win 1 or 2 more, even though he's fairly new in the UFC. For Smith, it's tougher. Like if Teixeira ends up champ, like, again, your mom or my mom is ahead of him in the line to get another shot at Teixeira. Just nobody's going to want to see it again. But yeah, the more I thought about this fight, the more this is actually a fairly relevant fight for the division, and I think Spann has a little more to gain here, and Smith probably has a little more to lose. Like, tell me what you think about that. Tell me if you think Ryan Spann ever makes it to a UFC light heavyweight title shot, and tell me who you think wins this fight.
Yeah, well, I got to address something right off the bat. So, speaking of moms, I just wanted to say Raquel Pennant has stopped ducking my mom. that's for the prelim show. It was Raquel Pennant, right? I don't know. I think it was Raquel Pennant. Anyways, back back. That was for anybody who listens to the prelims. Side note, Glover Teixeira challenging for the title against John Bohm. That's a very intriguing matchup. And I don't root for fighters. I root for who I pick. My prediction. I root for myself, I guess. But man, wouldn't it be just? I know Jan Blachowicz is a nice dude and great dude and all that, but wouldn't it be such a nice story if Glover Teixeira could win the title? Just come on. Anyways,
yes. It would be a great story, and yeah. It'd be a New England guy.
Yeah, we're adapting. We'll take anyone we can get. So as far as this matchup, to me, it's a weird matchup. It has a more of a co-main event feel. And if this was a pay-per-view, like this would be like I expect this to be. I expect this to be buried on like the prelims. Like give me a fight that could headline a fight night. Like, you have no issues. So give me like what's next? What's the next?
Well, Johnny Walker versus Thiago Santos in 2 weeks. Okay. That one is headlining a fight night. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not even headline. Yeah. Okay, it is. Yeah, that one's headlining in 2 weeks.
So Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker. If that fight was on this card, would you be shocked if Anthony Smith with Ryan Spann was on the prelims? I'm not saying it deserves to be on the prelims. I'm not saying that at all. Like, I think it deserves to high up the card. But would it shocked you if it was?
Well, the only reason it would is because of the magic of Anthony Smith, because this is like his 8th headliner in his last 9 fights. But otherwise, just talking about the levels of the fighters, yeah.
Like it's weird how like Ryan Spann was like prelim guy to suddenly, and I'm sure by his last fight might have been I didn't expect him to be in the main event after his last fight. That said, Smith. I say this every time we talk about Spann. I'll say it again. He's not a great athlete. I think he would say that. But he's very well rounded. He's technically sound. On the feet, he has high output. I'd say his hand speed has declined a little bit, but I actually say for the division, he's actually one of the faster punchers. He attacks with combinations, good variety of attacks, mixes and punches and kicks together in combinations. More doesn't have big power. I mean, it still is middleweight that moved up to light heavyweight. He's not a big one punch knockout guy. He's more of a compiler. I would even say he has plus power. I'd say he has like negative power for the division. But he's smart. He throws a lot of kicks, a lot of teep kicks. But the biggest concern I have for Smith is how much damage, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, how much damage he's taken, especially when you talk about the Glover Teixeira fight. That was a historic beating. The Rakic fight, that was another one that was way
The
up
Jones
there.
fight.
The John Jones. Yeah, it's funny. Of those three fights, and obviously John Jones was a one-sided, that's probably the least one-sided of those three fights that we just mentioned. But I'm just worried the years, man. This guy has so many regional fights, so many fights in the UFC, so many 5-round wars and just meetings that just suddenly it's going to fall apart. Like suddenly his chin's going to be gone. And he also like makes the mistake to put him in the position where they have like he'll fight against the cage, like backed against the cage and just getting teed off on. As far as a grappler though, he's I say a sneaky grappler. Like I think he's underrated on his wrestling. Like he's never gonna be a huge threat in the fact that like you're never gonna think of Anthony Smith as a great grappler, but he's effective. He was showing his last fight against Devin Clark getting submissions. But now move over to Ryan Spann. I'm still gonna go back to the Johnny Walker fight that I believe that there were one of the worst cases of punches to the back of the head, which Saif Sayoud is probably
that's the maddest I've ever seen Saif. Thank you for putting that out there.
Yeah.
That is the maddest I've ever seen Saif Sayoud.
Yeah, but as far as he's a long and lengthy guy, can be a low output. That's one of my worries. But he can crack, man. He's got good power. I mean, look at him. He's a true light heavyweight. I mean, he looks like a heavyweight. Big power. Left hook is his best strike. But his ground game is really underrated. Like he adds takedowns more and more into his game. It's actually became probably the strength of his game. Will sneak in a takedown, gets on top, and he just goes to town with some scary ground and pound. And then he's got 11 submission wins. So I shouldn't say it's underrated. I just because we've seen him knock guys out that we think about as this big cracker, but he's more of a submission threat. And guillotine kind of goes to his go-to move. Go back to the Sam Alvey fight. He had a standing guillotine. So as far as prediction goes, I had a really hard time picking this fight because I feel like both fighters are pretty well rounded. I feel like Smith has more polish, but I feel like Spann might have the intangibles where I'm gonna guess that Smith's more technical, but he's the harder hitter. I'm actually gonna think he might actually be the better wrestler, and he might even be the bigger submission threat. Though I don't think he submits Anthony Smith. I would be surprised if he submits him. But it just comes down to the amount of damage Anthony Smith has taken. I know I've seen it countless times. It's gonna happen. Like when I think about like Shogun, when suddenly he couldn't take a shot. I could see this fight being one of these fights where he gets put out, or just one of those ones. The damage he's taken is going to slow him down, and this could look a lot like the Rakic fight, or one of these fights where it's painful to watch him get beat up, especially if he gets stuck on the bottom. Ryan Spann can posture up and land some power strikes from on top. I think this might be one of the sad ones to watch, and I'm going to say it's a passing of the torch. I think it's going to be Ryan Spann's breakthrough performance. Give me Ryan Spann by decision, and actually I think it's not going to be as close as we think. I think give me Ryan Spann, pretty comfortable decision.
Hey, that's going to make it two of us calling for the slight upset in the main event here. Me for the same reasons as you, and I agree. Like Spann's ground game is not underrated, but just not talked about as much because he hasn't had the chance to flash it at the UFC level as much as he did back in the LFA days. But yeah, very, very good grappler. And But having said that, like you, I don't think he's gonna submit Anthony Smith unless it's like a mercy tap type thing where he gets the neck and finishes it because it's been such a beating on the ground.
Sure.
But I have the same concern as you with how much tread has been taken off the tires in the last couple of years for Smith, and that's a question that hasn't really been answered by the wins over Clark and Crute. I mean, the Clark fight took place almost entirely on the ground. We didn't really see much of what it looked like for him to exchange on the feet. And the Crute fight was over and around. And again, it was over. Like, I think it was justifiable. I don't think there was anything like particularly flukish or unfair about it. Like, you hurt your leg fighting Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith beat you. But in either case, we just don't know what he looks like deeper into a fight. We don't know how he's going to respond to getting cracked hard. And unless something goes really wrong, Spann's probably going to crack him hard a couple times. Yeah, I agree. This if Spann wins, this will be easily the biggest win of his career. And Smith is the kind of name that you can build your resume on as a title contender. It will move him into that conversation, even if there are several guys ahead of him in line, as I kind of laid out at the top of this segment. But yeah, I think Spann's gonna hurt Smith on the feet. While Smith's wrestling is definitely underrated, I don't think it's going to be a safety valve for him here. Like, I think he's going to get stuck taking damage on the feet. If it ends up in a clinch, if it ends up against the fence, the clinch is normally a good place for Anthony Smith. Like, he does a lot of damage with elbows and knees there. It's like a couple of the wins that he used to kind of propel himself into the title picture, like, the Evans and Shogun fights, like that was where he really did a lot of his damage. But I don't think it's going to be a safe place for him against Spann. Spann's going to be bigger, physically stronger, good himself in the clinch. Yeah, this is going to be a rough night for Anthony Smith. And yeah, like one of the true kind of Cinderella stories of the last couple of years in the UFC, I think will kind of come to an end. I don't think Smith's going anywhere, but this might be the last time we talk about him in the context of the upper reaches of the rankings. And I'm thinking Spann might even get a finish here, just, accumulated punishment. Give me Spann by third round. I'm going to say TKO, TKO because of probably ground strikes, but if it turns into like a mercy tap submission, that wouldn't surprise me either. But Ryan Spann by third round finish. And that will do it for the main card of UFC Fight Night 192, Smith versus Spann. Again, thank you for listening. If you listen to the prelims as well, thank you for listening to that. This goes down this Saturday. Check us out on the recap show. Usually, between 15, 20 minutes after the main event, we are live. You can find a link on the Sherdog front page or just go straight to the Sherdog YouTube page. Keith and I will be breaking it all down. Keith takes the captain's chair for that one, but the live chat is open, so we're taking your questions, we're taking your hot takes, your one-liners, whatever you've got to get off your chest after this 15-fight card. Please do come hang out with us. For the Sherdog Radio Network, I've been Ben Duffy. He has been Keith Shillan. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.